Hello, backpackers. This is Juan from On Backpacks, and I'm here today to answer one simple question. Do we need more than one sleeping pad to backpack all year long through the summer, spring, fall, winter? Or can we get it done with just one sleeping pad? In order to answer that question, I'm actually going to compare and contrast two different sleeping pads. One that I use during the summer, late spring, early fall, and the other that I use during the shoulder seasons when it's colder, early spring, late fall, and then winter here in the Northeast, when we usually have temperatures like in the mid 30s to low 40s. And so those are the conditions that I've used, my winter sleeping pad in, but I think it would be usable in colder weather. So in order to do that, let's look at these two sleeping pads and kind of go back and forth in the specs of these two sleeping pads. So the first one that I'm going to roll out really is a Nemo Tensor Elite. This one is the short version, which could basically handle folks that are about 5'4". I'm 5'5", so I hang out a little bit when I'm laying on my back. If I'm laying on my side, I'm perfectly fine in it because my knees are bent a little bit. I don't find that hangover significant. And so I'm okay with the short because it reduces the weight. It is 20 inches wide, goes down to 16 inches. The other one that I use in the wintertime is the Nemo Tensor All-Season. This one happens to be the regular length, so it's much longer. This one happens to be the wide version, so it's 25 inches wide as opposed to the 20 inches down to 16. And again, it's rectangular, so it's 25 inches, the whole length of the sleeping pad. So this is my winter sleeping pad. The weight of these is 7.6 ounces here. So basically extremely light, extremely light. The weight of the all-season tensor is 19 ounces. The weights that I'm giving you are the weights of just the sleeping pad only. I do not take the stuff sack or the pump sack that comes with these. I already talked to you about the width of both, and now I'll talk about how that plays into my decision. The narrower Tensor Elite, the 20 inch down to 16, in the summer, and when I'm not worried about cold, I'm not as worried about, like, say, arm falling out onto the ground or touching the ground at any point in time with my body by accident. And typically it's just an arm or something like that, or a hand. I'm not particularly concerned about when my quilt drapes out over the edges of that 20 inches or lower, that it's gapping along the ground and creating cold drafts, because again, it's more warm conditions. And so I don't worry as much about gapping happening with my sleeping pad, or I'm sorry, with my quilt. But in the flip side, with the Tensor All-Season, the 25-inch rectangular, I want that coverage because I don't want to run the risk of my body touching the ground to conduct cold, right? I don't want to have the risk of my quilt draping over the edges and then creating gaps where drafts can come through. And typically with the 25-inch in my quilt, it's literally the quilt's laying on the sleeping pad. I'm getting no gapping no matter whether I roll around or anything like that, because it's always laying on top of the sleeping pad. The thickness of these two pads, I don't know that has a lot of relevance, quite honestly, between whether I choose this one for the summer or the one for the winter. But the lighter one is less material, obviously, so it's 3 inches. And I will say this is extremely, just as a side note, extremely comfortable. I don't find either one of these being more comfortable than the other. Extremely comfortable. I can sleep on my side in this, and I'm not bottoming out on it. And it's not very noisy, as this one's pretty good in terms of the sound. And I find the material very comfortable and kind of squishy. And so it is a comfort thing. This sleeping pad is a 1/2 inch thicker at 3.5 inches. Again, probably helps a little bit with trapping more air and being a higher hour value, right? But overall, the comfort level between those two, it's not the reason that I chose one over the other. Now, the R value was where these two separate into two different use cases. More specifically, the R value of this lighter 7.6 ounce sleeping pad is 2.4. So that really does put it in the realm of like a summer sleeping pad. That's not really recommended, I don't think, for winter time use. The R value of this 19-inch sleeping pad is 5.4. So that does put you into that range where you're going to be, for most people, they're going to be comfortable like around that mid 30s, maybe low 30s. I've used 5.x, 5 point whatever sleeping pads down to 20, in the high 20s, to be honest with you, with no issue with the right sleeping bag and the right sleep clothes and so forth. But 5.4 will get you to that all season kind of rating. And so that's why I use this one in the winter. Again, I talked about the coverage and the width and all that. Now, part of the reason that these two are separated in weight is the amount of material, obviously, because you've got like a Pepsi can versus 2 water bottles, right? But also the fabric that's used. The Tensor Elite, the lighter one, uses 10D Cordura on the top and the bottom of the sleeping pad. And so obviously probably a little bit less durable, but I've used it with just a very thin ground sheet, and it's still alive and kicking on the Ray Lakes Loop. Just last week, I was out there. This one with the Nemo is 20D on top and 40D on the bottom. Again, it's nylon. And then the difference between the insulation of both, this has like one layer of aluminized film. Obviously, it's the lower R value. And this has 2 layers of floating aluminized thermal mirror that Nemo uses in their sleeping pads as insulation. So obviously that's more material, so you're getting the more weight, right? Wider, longer, more weight, heavier materials. But still, you've got a 19-ounce sleeping pad that's a 5.4 R value in this Nemo All-Season. So let's get back to my original question pretty quickly here. Do we really need 2 sleeping pads if we want to backpack year round under most conditions, or normal conditions, I guess? I would say the answer to that question is no, we don't. And I'll tell you why. I actually selected this Nemo All-Season first because I had the idea that it would be my only sleeping pad. I just wanted to spend money on one sleeping pad. It was in that 5.5 R value that I wanted because I knew that could take me into, most of my winter backpacking. And for me, it takes me down, because my other gear I combine with it, it does take me down into the 20s pretty easily, because I've had a 5.6 R value, taking it down into the 20s. So for me, it works. And so I thought to myself, yeah, I can use that in the summer too, and it's no big deal. It's only 19 ounces. And again, I'm using the 25 wide rectangle because I'm taking it in the winter. You can make this lighter if you just want the mummy, to be honest with you. You could go a few ounces lighter than this. So this one would serve me, and the idea was when I bought this is it would serve me year round. And it did. I had this pad on the Uinta High Line, 108 miles. In 10,000 plus feet of backpacking, packing at 10,000 plus feet in July, and it was perfectly fine. We had warm nights and we had very cold nights out there, and it did both of those things very, very well combined with my 20-degree, quilt. So if you only have the resources or the desire to have one sleeping pad, you can get away with it, but you have to pick the one that's going to work in the winter as well. That's, I think, the trick. The one that works in the winter, and then buy something that's light enough that you can live with it and carry it year round. And again, 19 ounces year round, not a big deal at all. I was doing it for 2 years. So again, backpackers, that's my answer to the question. Not sure that the sleeping pad manufacturers would like the fact that I just told you that you should only, or you cannot get away with using just one sleeping pad and not be like me having 2 different ones. But honestly, I enjoy having a super light load in the summertime and doing more miles. And so there's a reason that I do that. There's a reason I have 2. And luckily I have the resources to have 2. But if you can only get one, you can only afford one, just look for one that does it all. All right, backpackers, until next time, get out there, do some backpacking, do some hiking, stop watching YouTube videos, unless they're mine. Then watch them all from start to finish. Later, backpackers.